Welcome to Yogaroo Online. So in this restorative practice, we're going to be learning all about how to relax and how to learn to value downtime. So restorative works deeply with the nervous system, and just a quick recap on the two different areas of the nervous system. So you have your sympathetic nervous system, which is your on switch, and that kind of it helps you to get stuff done. It's your kind of your activity part of your day. And then you have your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your off switch. And that's where you restore and you replenish all the organs of the body work best in this parasympathetic nervous system state. The sympathetic nervous system, yes, it's kind of activity, but it's also called fight and flight, or it's basically the kind of simile to explain it is always this idea of a bear is running at you. What do? You go into fight or flight. But it gets a bad rap. It is where things get done. So we do wake up, and when we're feeling kind of lively, there's little bits of sympathetic nervous system there. When you're exercising madly, you're running, you're doing anything, sweating, that's sympathetic. And then when we come into our yoga, even parts of yoga, an active yoga class can be sympathetic, but then we want to make sure that we are coming into the parasympathetic, or the off switch, at appropriate times of the day. And unfortunately, in the active lives that we lead, we have kind of messed up our signaling systems and our nervous system to the point where it's become very difficult for us to hit the off switch, because we have just constant stimulation around us, and with screens, and people are able to contact us all the time. Is that we now have to actively make sure that we can rework the neuroplasticity of our brain and our nervous system to ensure that we can reach that parasympathetic nervous system and flick that off switch, to make sure that all the organs of the body are working well, we're sleeping well, and we're able to value our downtime rather than living in this kind of chronic stress state. Okay, so one thing to mention is that it's the main nerve is the vagus nerve. I am posting an article up on my website all about the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve. It's called the wandering nerve, and it goes to, it's the longest nerve. It goes through all the organs of the body, which is very unusual for a nerve, and it's the one that restorative in particular, as a yoga discipline, taps into through the breath, through the way we sit and settle the body, through gentle openings and just consciously relaxing. So it's bottom down, in other words, the body is signaling to the brain, and top down, where we are kind of controlling our brain and signaling down to the body. So they're both meeting each other and working together. Now, one thing to note as we go through our practice now, great, we're on Zoom, or you're watching the recording here, so this is very much your practice, and you need to fidget to find comfort. So it's completely counterproductive to this restorative practice if you're lying there and you're kind of going, I'm a bit uncomfortable, but I can't be bothered to move, or this is what she said, so I'll stay here. It's really important that if something isn't working, if your shoulder is kind of fidgeting or hanging, or something is pinching, you put more blankets in, you move it, move an arm down or around you. Just move around until you find absolute comfort in the pose, so that the nervous system can start to streamline into this vagus nerve that I talked about. Okay, so it's an accumulative practice. So just depending on what your day has been like, you might find it a little bit hard to drop in. I don't ever expect myself to drop in the first pose. If you do, great, but it's accumulative. So it might take you a few poses to kind of really allow yourself to settle into practice. I will be guiding you all the way through, and I will be constantly bringing you back to the breath, because the breath, and you're seeing this all over. It's been scientifically proven, and it's getting a lot of airtime at the moment. The breath is the fastest route to this rest and restore response. It's the fastest route to the vagus nerve, and that's why meditation and other disciplines like that are so good for you because you are really calming the breath down. Okay, so I think we will get started. So you have your mat underneath you. I'm hoping that you all have at least 4 blankets. You might get away with 3. You have your 2 bricks and your bolster. Okay, so have everything close by to you. Now this is a kind of, I don't have socks on, but very much a kind of socks on, layers on, have extra things beside you. Stay warm, okay? Your body will cool down as you start to kind of settle into this practice. So that's why I always have extra blankets nearby just to throw them on top of me to make sure that I'm staying comfortable. Okay, so coming down onto your backs there now. And we're just going to start off in one of the simplest restorative poses we're coming into, constructive rest. Okay, so just to describe it, your feet are mat distance apart and your knees are knocked in together. So that kind of like, the knees are holding the legs up. So that takes the effort out of the legs being bent. Okay, and then just the arms are, the space between your arms and your body and the palms are facing up towards the ceiling. Okay, so just settling, fidgeting around, maybe, moving your shoulder blades around, rolling your head from side to side, and just finding complete and utter comfort here as you start your restorative practice. So as we come into the idea of settling onto your mat, first thing and most important thing is we're going to bring our attention to our breath. So just start by bringing your attention to your breath and not necessarily changing it in any way at all, just observing it, and then maybe in a minute we'll play around with it a little bit. You might even want to place one hand on your belly just to kind of notice the expansion of the inhale and the gentle contraction of the exhale. You might even find a pulse in your belly there. And if at all possible, and if you have your nasal passage is clear, see can you breathe just through your nose, so mouth closed, eyes closed gently. Now bring your attention to your exhale. Again, not changing it any way at all, just observing the exhale. And can you feel with your exhale the idea of the body just becoming heavy and accepting the support of the mat, the ground, the earth surface underneath you? And notice then with the inhale that the body gets a little bit lighter as the lungs expand with air, almost like the inflation of a balloon. The body comes just a little bit lighter. So we want to help those muscles to become relaxed and soften. All those little areas that you might clench through your body, we want them to release. So let's bring our attention again to our exhale and just lengthen the exhale just a little bit. So maybe I'll do it with you. I'm going to do the count of 4 in and a count of 6 out. If that breath count does not suit you, take a ratio that does suit you with just a slightly longer exhale. So I'll do 3 counts of 4 in and 6 out, and you can come along with me if that suits. So inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last round. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then settle, let go of that, let the breath go back to normal, let your breath. Now really slowly lengthen the legs out one at a time. So lengthen the left leg out to the left corner of your mat, and then slide and lengthen the right leg out to the right corner of your mat. And then reach the arms overhead. So left arm is reaching over and beyond the left corner of your mat. Right arm is reaching over and beyond the right corner of your mat. Reach through your left toes and your right fingertips in a diagonal stretch through the body. See, can you root out the point somewhere, maybe around your belly button, where the direction of the stretch changes. And then let that, just gently let go of that, and let the kind of the two limbs almost creep back towards midline. And then reach through the left fingertips and the right toes, reaching away in a diagonal line. Find that point, maybe somewhere around your belly button again, where the direction changes from reaching away and reaching up. Now release that and just let them kind of creep back again to center. And then reach everything away. Make a big star shape here. Both toes pointing, both fingertips stretching. And then let everything just creep back to center. Let go of that. Okay, bring your arms back down, bend the knees, and just holding onto the knees, not particularly going to hug them in, because we don't want to do anything too sudden for the back. You're just going to hold onto the knees, right hand on right knee, left hand on left knee, and circle the knees on the ceiling there, little massage on your lower back. Circling in one direction, and then circling in the opposite direction. And going nice and slowly now, seeing is there any little point where it feels particularly nice, and if you do find a spot, I'm finding something on my right outer hip there, just stay on that and maybe roll forward and back a few times and see, is there anything on the other side that feels nice? Okay, and then we're just going to bring the feet down. And then we're just going to grab our bolster and pop it underneath your hips. So lift the hips up and pop your bolster underneath the hips and let the hips come down. Okay, so make sure that the lower back isn't hyperextended there. So tilt maybe those pointy hip bones back and down, like they're sliding a little bit off your bolster, just to ensure that you don't have an overarch in your back there. Arms can be just either side of the bolster there, palms facing up towards the ceiling. So just a very gentle inversion here. So whilst we want to do all the different movements in our restorative, some of them we want to keep a little bit more gentler than others, because inversions can be quite energizing. So we're just going to do a gentle inversion. Inversions are fantastic for cardiovascular health and blood flow, so we definitely want to add them into our restorative. So again, you can knock the knees together, or maybe that might pull a little bit on your lower back there. So just see what leg position feels good for you. And maybe just kind of lifting up the toes and pressing them down into your mat. So just you're going to get, and then release the grip. But what we're trying to do there is just warm a little spot on your sticky mat so that the feet will kind of stick to it, so that there's no effort in the holding the legs. And now just coming back to your breath again, with this kind of almost like the chest is a little bit in your peripheral vision there. Can you feel and also see the expansion of the chest with your inhale? And I'm not going to cue it, but see even yourself what it feels like to do the 4 in and the 6 out breath. I'm just seeing and feeling the breath opening and then the breath contracting and coming away out of your peripheral vision possibly. Okay, we're going to move on. So press your feet into the ground and just lift your hips up. Again, this is all just about energy efficiency, just enough to pop that poster out to the side there. Roll over to your right hand side, press your left hand into the ground. Again, support yourself as you come up and move really slowly. So move like a tortoise during your practice today. Okay, so have a look up towards me. We're going to get our first propped pose ready. So we'll start with the fourfold. Now, everyone's blankets are going to be different sizes, so look up at me possibly for the resulting blanket as well as the instruction on how to fold it, just so you can see in general what kind of size I'm propping myself up with. So just come to, this is a fourfold for my blanket here, so in other words, I've folded it in two, and then I've folded it again in four, so it's got four leaves to it. I'm going to pop that down on the ground and I'm going to roll it up. I'm going to roll it up quite loosely because this is going to go under our shoulder blades. We're going to do a nice little chest opening to start with, but that area of the spine doesn't need a huge amount of lift, so we certainly don't want it to be too firm or too high. So that's about the size of what mine is going to end up like. And again, you know, this is your practice, you're at home, you're not disturbing anyone. If any of the rolls that you've made are too low or too high, you just come out of the pose, fidget, change, and then come back into it. So you'll be holding the poses for a few minutes, so you'll have plenty of time to adjust. Okay, so I'm going to come back onto my back again and have that, so where we wanted to hit just at our shoulder blades there. The way I know it is when I come down, and I'll show you again, there's about 2 fingers between the blanket and my armpit, and that's how I know that it's kind of sitting in the right position on my shoulder blades. Okay, so just coming down onto your back and hitting the shoulder blades there, and then I just lift my arm, and 2 fingers, I can fit them just between my blanket and my armpit, so I know that my blanket roll is in exactly the right place there. And lengthen the legs out if your back allows it there. So lengthen the legs out, maybe shimmy the legs and just get the hips in the nice position. And see how that just, that very small amount of a roll gives a lovely big chest open. So arm positions, lots of choices. You can have your arms in cactus position or goal pose position, either side of you there, which will give you probably the most chest opening. If that doesn't suit your shoulders, or if your shoulders are just holding tension or hanging too much in space, you can lengthen the arms in T-shape with the palms facing up or facing down. And if you don't have space or that still doesn't feel good for you, you can have the arms kind of do have a bit of space between your arms and your body there, because the more you bring the arms down towards the sides of your body, the less of a chest open. So we certainly want the arms raised somewhat, whether they're in cactus T-shape or raised away from the body. Okay, so this is a great pose to start your propped part of your practice with, to help you to really find your breath and to notice your breath physically, internally and externally. So you kind of feel the sensation of your chest rising up with your inhale and dropping down towards the roll blanket on your exhale. So maybe even trying one of our 4-6 breaths. So inhaling for 4, 3, 2, 1, and then exhaling for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And also just one thing to remind you of is maybe even bringing your hand onto your belly there, particularly in this pose where the chest is being opened up like this. The temptation is to kind of let the belly to draw in as we're breathing in, but of course we want the belly to expand as we're breathing in. So if you think you might be reverse breathing, that's called, bring your hand to your belly and make sure that it is definitely lifting. Might not lift a huge amount because we're stretching the belly, but it certainly needs to lift as you're inhaling and then contract as you're exhaling. So feel the weight of the clothes across your chest there. The comfort of the fabric, and those little sensors of your skin. And notice the difference between the areas of your body that have got the weighted clothes on them and the areas of your body, whether it's your arms, your feet, your face, that don't have any fabric on them. So feel the texture and the temperature of the skin in the room. Check in with your shoulders here now, make sure that they're softening, that they're not bunched up around your ears, and maybe even shimmy them away from your ears a little bit, have length through the neck. Bring your attention now to that space kind of at the back of your skull there. It's called the occipital curve. And it's just kind of, if you track below your ear and travel back behind to the back of your skull, it's a lovely little curve at the back of your neck. But it's also a space that we hold a lot of tension, and it's where a lot of tension headaches come from. So even just bringing your attention to that space, the curve at the back of your neck and the back of your skull. See, can you bring a little bit of lightness there? Not necessarily a space that you will be able to control the muscles of, but just bringing your attention to it. And maybe if we travel through the front of the face and soften our jaw, soften our temples, let the skin across your cheekbones be soft. Eyes become heavy in the sockets. Soften the skin across your forehead. See, can you find any of those little micro muscles around your eye sockets and ask them to soften. So it might seem a little odd, but we can control the muscles that don't seem to be controllable by sending these messages internally. So just literally saying the words in your head will help to ease any sort of muscle tension. Now go back to that curve at the back of your skull and see, can you notice any difference? And no problem if you don't, just observation, always observing. And your whole head now is relaxed and softening, skin melt and soft as silk. We're going to get ready to move on to our next pose now. So bring the arms down if they are in cactus position. I'm going to try and approach just from staying in a lying position. So if you can, just come on to your shoulder blades there and lift your pelvis off the ground now. So what we're going to do is pop your flat rolled blanket underneath your hip crease. So we wanted, there's your hip crease there, if you can see me. It's basically where your pelvis hits the top of your thigh there. That's your hip crease. So when the leg lengthens out, we want the blanket to be directly under the hip crease there. Okay, so now definitely you want the blanket to be quite low for this. Again, we want to lengthen the legs out. Have a sense of letting those pointy hip bones tilt back and down like they're kind of falling a little bit off the blanket, and that will prevent you from overarching your lower back there. So just making sure that you don't you don't have the blanket too far down on your pelvis there that your lower back is arching too much. So tilting the pelvis a little bit back towards the ground to ensure that you don't overarch. Hands facing up towards the ceiling. So this can be quite a strong hip opener at the front of the psoas there, that hip flexor at the front of the hips. So we'll take some breaths in this. Generous breaths. Deep inhale and exhale. Because we won't hold it for too long. It's nice to open up the front of the body. And always coming back to your breath. So anytime you find yourself wandering off your mat, as in your mind is wandering off your mat, hopefully you're not wandering off your mat, use your breath to anchor you back down into your practice. So the mind always kind of benefits from having a focal point. It's like the way in meditation where people often use the flicker of a candle. So it kind of pushes out all the other chatter when we kind of give it something to streamline its attention towards. So in our restorative practice, we use the breath as our focus point. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next pose. So bend at both knees. And lift the blanket, or lift the pelvis up and pop the blanket out to the side there. So we're just going to roll onto your belly. And we're going to take our blanket roll and pop it underneath your belly. Okay? So we're going to reverse what we just did there and have a little bit of opening in the lower back there. So again, the blanket roll is not very wide. What you can do now is grab another blanket. And what I'm going to do with this is it's folded up into kind of a small rectangle there. And all I'm going to do with that is I'm going to come down onto my belly and I'm going to just place my forehead on top of that blanket. It just gives me a little bit of space to breathe. And I want you to ideally keep your head neutral. So rather than lying on a cheek, keep the head neutral. Arms can be in cactus position either side of your upper blanket at the top. Okay, so your rolled blanket is kind of sitting again, maybe just a little bit above. It's kind of like it's just right on your hip bones there. And hopefully you have a sense of a little bit of opening through the lower back there. So if you don't feel the opening through the lower back, move the blanket up or down, just depending on the kind of height of your pelvis, until you have a sense of a nice little spread in the back of the sacroiliac there, the lower back. And just notice how this feels for you. Where we had our chest open to the room, now we're kind of relying on our chest, and maybe we start to observe our breath in the back of the lungs there. So feel your shoulder blades opening a little bit with the inhale, and maybe contracting a little bit with the exhale. Just noticing how everything is in motion even when we are still. And our breath is so three-dimensional that we feel it at the front, the sides, and the back body. Okay, we're going to move on. We want to leave plenty of time for our big poses. So we're going to gently come up out of this one. Press both hands either side of your chest there to gently lift yourself up onto all fours there. And then just pop all your props off your mat there, and we're going to build our first one. Okay, so for the next one, you're going to have your bolster at the top of your mat there. And maybe we're going to put, now this again, some people it suits and some people prefer it without, but pop a small kind of fold up blanket at the top of your bolster there, and that's going to be for your head. And now we're going to build, I'm just going to take this and throw it up. Okay, and then we're going to have a rolled up or a folded up blanket, so kind of just a small rectangular one with a decent bit of depth to it, and maybe you can use two if you have them. Or just we'll see. We'll try one, try two, and see what works best or what you have available. Okay, and you're going to come on to your left hip there. Okay, so coming on to sit on your left hip. And then we get the legs set up first. So I have my left thigh perpendicular to my mat there now. And what I'm going to do with these blankets here is just wedge them in between my legs. So you'll decide yourself, just again, it just depends on the width of your pelvis, whether you need one folded up blanket or whether two folded up blankets feels nice and secure. Okay, so one actually feels like plenty for me. Okay, so now you have your legs ready. Make sure now you've got like about an inch or two between your hip and the bolster there, because we're gonna lengthen up through the whole spine and drape ourselves over the bolster. But if we're too close to it, you can see there I've got like about 2 inches. If you're too close to it, you won't have room for the pelvis to tilt forward. Also, if you're quite tall, you want to make sure that your head is going to hit the top of the bolster. So you might even need to be more than 2 inches away from your bolster so that your head hits your pillow there. Okay, so I've got both hands either side of my bolster there. And I'm going to lengthen up, actually just face up towards the side of your mat there first. And we'll lengthen on an inhale through the whole spine. And then as we exhale, we just come into a twist. So we'll twist first and then we'll lengthen again and come down. Okay, so I'm twisting on my exhale towards my bolster. Okay, so my whole spine is going to come down from my belly button, tracing through the chest all the way up through the center of the bolster there. So inhale, lengthen through the whole spine one more time. And then exhale, place each vertebrae down one by one across the bolster. Being really gentle now, careful with your lower back as you come down. And then you're going to place your left cheek on your blanket there, or come down off the bolster. Now I'm going to have to probably arranging my head a little bit differently than you, because I have to make sure that I don't hit my mic. Okay, so you have your left cheek on either the top of your bolster or your blanket there. Okay, so definitely want to observe the shoulders in. So maybe even shimmying the arms a little bit away from the sides of the bolster, because, well, definitely for me, and I have particularly long arms, if I have them too tucked in against the sides of the bolster, that's lifting my shoulders up away and bringing them up towards my ears. So if I kind of walk my arms away from the bolster a little bit, and maybe even down a little bit, it kind of makes sure that those shoulders aren't hiked up towards the ears. Okay, so do a little scan from head to toe and make sure that everything is happy. So does your top right hip feel supported now? You need to add an extra little bit of a wedge between the knees. And one way, if this is too much of a twist for your spine and you're finding you can't quite get the ridge of your front of your spine across the bolster, is actually to wedge an extra blanket underneath that left knee. So if the twist is too intense for you, by wedging a blanket underneath your left knee there, you're bringing yourself a little bit out of the twist there. So there's always ways to adjust these poses to take a little bit out if there's anything there that's too much. And remembering, just like I mentioned at the start of the class, to find complete relaxation and comfort here, so that you can get all the benefits of all this work that you're putting into this. So, it's relaxing, but it's still work. It's, you've turned up, you've shown up for yourself. So make sure that you get the absolute most you can out of this practice. So bring your attention back again to your breath. And we've got loads going on here with the breath now. So not only have we, like we did in our last pose, we're feeling the breath in the back of the chest there and the back of the ribs, the whole back body. We're also kind of feeling it quite differently here in the belly, because the belly is twisted. So it feels a little bit maybe harder to take a deep breath here. But that is where the benefit of the twist is. So work with the twist and work with your breath and see, can you expand your breath at all here? Massaging all those little tissues, and all the abdominal organs. Feel your belly pressing against your bolster with your inhale. So feel the lovely support. So our first pose now using the bolster, just a slight inversion at the start. So really feel for the support of the bolster underneath you. And notice now as your breath dropped into a lovely, calm and gentle pattern, like the rise and fall of the tide. Okay, so getting ready to move to our second side of this pose. So you're just going to bend the arms, place both sides, or both hands either side of the bolster, and gently lift yourself up. And you're going to come onto the back of or sit back there. So sit back onto your back of your pelvis, and you're literally just going to flip your knees to the opposite side there. I'm just going to move my upstairs so that I come back to you. Okay, so now you are on your right hip now, and hopefully your blanket stayed in place there. So you have your right hip up against the post there, remembering to leave that little bit of space, and you're probably now familiar with what the amount of space you need now to make sure that you hit your blanket pillow. And let's get into it now. So come with your chest towards me first. We'll inhale to lengthen through the spine. And then exhale, take it into a twist. Hands either side of those to inhale to lengthen through the whole spine again. Feel the whole chest there. And then exhale to really mindfully, vertebrae by vertebrae, bring your whole spine down across the ridge of your bolster. And move really slowly here. Just notice what parts have more sensation in them either. And this time you're going to be bringing your right cheek down onto the top of your bolster there on your blanket. And now feel that lovely stretch across the top of the left hip there. And feel that lovely corkscrew twist through the left side of your belly there. Feel the breath more intensely maybe through the left lung. And again, just adjust the arms, make sure that those shoulders aren't bunched up around the ears. So that might mean bringing them a little bit, your arms a little bit further away from the bolster or maybe a little bit back towards your hips. So just moving them anyway to make sure that you're not causing a bunching of the shoulders there. Check in with your legs, make sure that you're happy. You have enough padding between the knees there. And then just do one more little sweep through the whole body to make sure that there's nothing trying to catch your attention. Observe the breath again. Notice how it feels to breathe in this deep twist. And remembering that if it's too deep a twist, to pop some sort of a blanket or something underneath now that right leg, just to take the hips a little bit out of the twist. Adjusting to whatever serves you best. Ready now to come out of this pose, so press both hands either side of your bolster there, have yourself to lift up. And then just pop your bolster off your mat. We can move on to a pose now that uses just blankets and bricks. So there's lots of things you can do with your restorative practice with just blankets and bricks. So this one is a lovely chest opener. And it's a version, if you practice other forms of yoga, you'd recognize the name, but it's a version of fish pose. It's a supported fish pose. Okay, so take your blanket into a fourfold there, and then roll it over again, or not roll it, fold it over again, and fold it over again, so that you end up with the blanket in this kind of, this is the size that we were using for our head pillows and things like that. Okay, so this kind of size. We're going to take a low version of fish pose. So we're going to have one of our bricks on its medium height and one on its low height. Okay, so just to go through the heights of the bricks with you, you can see it there. This is the highest height. This is medium height. And this is the lowest height. So you're going to have one on medium with the long sides facing you and one on low there. So hopefully you can see that there. And so my head is going to sit on the medium one, and then my shoulder blades are going to sit on the low one there. And there's also a version where you can take it on high and medium, but we're going to take the lower one. It's a little bit more secure. So now just to make sure none of the corners are going to get into us, we're going to pop our two blankets on top of them. So again, this one, it's kind of similar to the blanket one that we did at the very start, where it was a smaller blanket. We want this one here, the lowest one, to kind of sit kind of similar to where that one was. It's kind of on our shoulder blades, so that we get, so think about it, that the shoulder blades, what's at the front of the shoulder blades is the chest. So we want to open the chest out. So really it's kind of, if you just maybe come down onto them, you might have to fidget around and make sure that you get the right height for you. So just coming down nice and slowly, I can feel my shoulder blades hitting that first brick, and then maybe I need to adjust the back one. So this back one here, and this, I love this pose, it's a very good one for, definitely for tension headaches, because you are now going to have that occipital curve that I talked about at the start of practice is going to sit on top of, or just the top of the curve is going to sit on top of the higher brick there. And it's also, it's a little sensors, it's a kind of a point of the body that has loads of sensors and receptors. So even if we just, you know, nod our head in a no, kind of, there's a little area there that that is very sensitive to touch in a good way. And then lengthening the legs out. Maybe just shimmying with the hips and rock them forward and back until you find a nice position for your hips there, hands facing up towards the ceiling. Let those shoulders now, you know, you've got your brick that's kind of supporting your shoulder blades there. Let the shoulders fall back, so let them really submit to gravity and drop down either side of that low brick there. As the head kind of sits up that little bit more. Feel length through the neck here. And maybe the chin kind of lifts up a little bit. And feel the breath now in this pose in comparison to the twists, and you can certainly feel this more expansion of the breath here when we have the chest open. Almost feel a strength to the breath. And come back to your face scan again, like we did earlier. That feel for any little bits of tension that you know you habitually hold in your face. I certainly hold tension in my jaw. And just check in with them, check your patterns and make sure that you've softened, you've found the little bits that, you know, were hiding, any bits of tension or muscles being held unnecessarily. And see, can you consciously soften through? Let your expression melt. And feel now, as the body kind of settles into practice, that what started off with kind of, you know, a lovely heaviness as all the muscles started to relax, it suddenly kind of evolves into this lightness too. So this kind of like so relaxed that you can almost feel the heaviness of gravity with the lightness of the body too. Feel points of contact with the props and the ground underneath you here. So feel the backs of the heels, the backs of the calves, the back of the hips, the pelvis, the back of the upper back, those lovely triangular shoulder blades, and the back of the skull there. Maybe even the forearms and the backs of the hands. And I'm going to stay warm now, so if you're finding you're cooling down, grab some of those extra blankets and put them over either part of your body and feel nice because you get the lovely secure weight of the blanket, or just drape it over the whole body. Okay, so let's get ready to move on to our next pose. So bend the knees up here and bend the elbows until your forearms hit the ground, and just really gently lift yourself up. And the head might feel a little bit heavy here now. So lift yourself up to a seated position, and we'll get our props ready for our next pose. Okay, so for the next one, we're just going to take those blankets off so you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to leave this lowest one here at the top of your mat, and you're going to push the other one, you're going to put it on its lowest height there and push it off your mat there. Pop the blanket back on top of the one closest to you, so that is going to be your pillow. And then you're going to have another blanket that's going to go between your legs, and then you're going to get your bolster. You're going to pop your bolster along your blanket, along the center of your blanket there. Okay, so we're going to come into a side bend now. So that's why we've been doing lots of chest opening, a little bit twisting, because the side bend needs a nice bit of opening before we come into it, particularly this one. Okay, so you're going to get the bolster, and we want the bolster to hit into your waist there, so where the top of your trousers will hit. So the smallest part of your waist is where this bolster will be, and it's going to fill the space of your waist there as you drape your whole body over the bolster. So it's important that you are very accurately side facing on this. We don't want to take this into a twist at all. So we want, if you're looking up towards me, the spine is lengthened, and we literally are tipping the whole spine to the side. We're not going to come into a twist in any way for the first part. Okay, so have your bolster there. Let's get the legs ready. And you can pop the blanket in between the legs there, just to support that top hip there. And then you have just to show you, there's like a space between that brick, which is my pillow, and the bolster, for the arm to reach through. So I'm on my left hip now, and my left arm is reaching through. I'm draping my whole spine over the bolster until my head comes down and hits the pillow. And then the right arm, I'm going to give you options for the right arm, because sometimes this overreach can take a community too much on some people's shoulders. And also maybe a few minutes into the pose, it might feel a little bit too intense. So the first version is to reach this right arm overhead, the palm facing down towards the ground. And you're not particularly even holding on to the brick. You're literally just letting the fingertips create a claw around the brick. So it's literally just very lightly and naturally grasping onto it. It's really, it's just to have something to hold it there. And you're not particularly holding the brick at all. Okay, so that will give you the full extent of your banana. This pose is called blissful banana. So this is the full curve through the spine. And if that doesn't suit your shoulder, you can literally just bring the arm either down on top of the left arm, or just have it draped on top of the front part of your bolster there, or even down kind of to on your belly. So just wherever feels good for that shoulder. So I'm going to start with my arm overhead, but as I mentioned before, that sometimes the arm overhead can fatigue a little bit. So at some stage, you might want to bring the arm back down. But maybe if it feels okay, you can start with this version. This is definitely a pose where you will notice whether your bolster is a high bolster or a low bolster. So if you're finding that your bolster is too firm or too high, and it's too dramatic a side bend for your spine, then just push the bolster out of the way and roll up some blankets and pop it underneath your spine there. So again, feel the breath now intensifying in the right side of your respiratory system there. So really feel the right lung expanding. Of course, both lungs are expanding, but we're kind of almost feeling it more in the right side of the body because we have stretching through it. We're opening up the right side. So make sure the hips are nice and heavy now. They're not lifted off the floor at all. So both my legs are on the ground and my hip is firmly planted just in front of the bolster there. So feel the little spaces that you've created between each of your ribs. And also see, can you sense, or just even in your mind's eye, the idea of extra little bits of space between the discs, the vertebrae of your spine. So, obviously, if you bend to the side, these lovely bony structures open up on one side and close on the other. So we're opening up in between each of the vertebrae on the right side of your whole spine here. Now if you have your arm reaching overhead, now might be a good time to just bring it back down. A bit too much on the blood flow of that arm. Back to your breath, always coming back to your breath. So gently getting ready to move on to our second side. Press your right hand into the ground there and gently lift yourself up. So what you're going to do, I'll just demo you and then I'll flip to the other side so I don't head back to you. So just bring your hands behind your back there. And again, same as we did the last time, you're just going to windsweep up, wipe your legs until you find your way onto your right hip there. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to lengthen up through the spine and you're going to drape yourself over your bolster there onto your right side. Reaching your right arm forward, finding a comfortable spot for your head on your pillow brick. And then getting ready to reach that left arm overhead if it suits you. So reaching the left arm up and over and just letting the fingertips curl around the brick. And now feel for the breath in the left side of the body, the left lung. Feel for the expansion of the little bits of space between the rib cage on the left side now. lengthening your breath here. So really playing around with your breath. And seeing, can you really expand and contract? Find your deep breath and what deep breath feels like for you. And then again, in your mind's eye, just kind of this sense of the bits of space between the vertebrae bones along the spine. Opening up on the left side now and then coming closer together on the right side as we come into this blissful banana on the right side. And if you have the arm now reaching overhead, maybe now is the time to just bring it back down. Find a slightly more comfortable version of the arm reach. Gently getting ready to come out of that side. So press your left hand into your mat now, gently, very slowly. And the more you go into your practice, the slower you move. Come up to a seated position. And we're going to get ready to build our next one. So for the next one, you need your 2 bricks again. You're going to have your first brick on the medium height at the top of your mat, and then the second brick on the lowest height. So we're going to come into, you do classes with me, you do this one a lot, it's definitely one of my favorites. We're going to come into resting or supported Baddha-Konasana, so bound angle. And I'm going to give you options here because bound angle doesn't suit everybody's inner groin. So you're going to have your bolster nice and firmly across those 2 bricks there. And then we are going to have, let's see, how many of these do you need? Have all your blankets there and make sure it's close by. Okay, so come to sit again with your pelvis just in front of your bolster there, but making sure that you have a little bit of space for the pelvis to tilt back. Okay. So we're going to do a foot rack here to secure the feet. I'm going to set you up in this, and then I'm going to give you a second option. Maybe I'll explain it now actually. So what we're going to do, I won't prop it, I'll just show you both leg positions, and then you can decide which one it is the one that you want to take. So the upper body is going to lie back. We've got that. Okay, and then now some people might like a blanket there at the top, just if they don't like their head to be too far back, but you might need quite a few of them for the leg wrap though. So the first option is going to be in Baddha-Konasana. Soles the feet together. We're going to wrap the feet to make sure that they're secure and they're not kind of sliding, and then we're gonna wedge the legs with rolled blankets here. So whilst it is quite a strong groin opening pose, you are propped to the point that it's comfortable for you. Okay, so you're going to wedge a blanket there, and your leg might be up as high as here if you've got tight inner groins there, but you will be propped so that the leg isn't hanging and pulling, because we don't want any overstretching or pulling in our restorative. That's your first leg position. Maybe everyone will come along into that one, and I'll explain it nicely with all the blankets. And if that does not suit you and you're not finding it comfortable on the inner groin, you're literally just going to lengthen the legs out into a reclined seated position. And maybe you'd like to, put a little blanket on the legs, or put a blanket on the belly, put a blanket on the whole body, and you're going to come into your pose like this. Again, it's a lovely chest opening position, and we've got lots of things going on there as well. Okay, so just to explain the leg version, we are going to pop a 4-fold blanket across the end of our mat there. Okay, I'll explain this one twice. It's a little bit fiddly. You're going to bring your feet into Baddha Konasana, and then you're going to wrap the blanket over your feet and around the back of your ankles there. Put your feet or your hands in between your legs, and you're just pulling those two edges up. And then as the ankles come down, it kind of wedges them in space. Okay, so I'll just explain that one again. I have my blanket here, and it's just folded over my feet. I'm going to bring the soles of the feet together. I'm going to make a little sandwich of my feet. I'm taking the ends of my roll of my blanket here and putting them behind my blankets or behind my ankles. And then I'm putting my hands between my legs and pulling those two ends. I don't know if you can see them there. I've got my two ends there, and I'm kind of wrapping them around my feet, just securing my feet in space. Not a big issue if you're finding that one hard to grasp, but what you're trying to do is just wrap the feet to secure them so that they're not sliding on your mat there. Okay? And then we're going to make our rolls that will go underneath our upper thighs. So we've got our rectangular blanket there, and we're going to roll it up. And I want these to be definitely reasonably big for most people. You're going to just have it at a 45 degree, and you're wedge it underneath your buttocks there until you feel well and supported through the inner groin. You can play around with them when we come into a lying position to make sure that they really are supporting your inner groin to the extent that you need support. So I'm going to wedge that underneath that thigh there as well. Okay, so I'm ready to come down. Make sure the bolster is positioned just at your back there, a little bit of space, and then gently come down. Adjust those blankets there if you need to, and they might be really firmly underneath your thighs, or the back of your hips as well even. And then I'm going to just place this blanket over my inner groin and my pelvis there, okay? So I can feel the blanket that I've wrapped around my feet is not only keeping my feet nice and snug and warm, but it's also holding my feet so that they're not sliding down the mat there. And then my two rolled blankets here are supporting my legs so that they're not just hanging on whatever tightness I have on my inner groin. So they're not hanging in space. And then I have my final blanket over my belly there, and that's the one that you can even use as your pillow or over your belly. So it can be nice and restorative. I often drape the blanket on the part of the body that is being opened. It's kind of you're asking it to open, and then you're giving it a little bit of love and a little bit of kind of a nod of appreciation. So that's where blanket comes in handy. Okay, so lovely chest opening, inner groin opening, just all the tensions of the body washing away now. And just let the shoulders just hang either side of the bolster there, and maybe shimmy them down a little bit, make sure they're well away from the ears there. Maybe roll the head a little bit, And feel again for that little lovely curve at the back of your skull. Really feel your breath now through your whole body, not just your belly, not just your chest. Can you feel the benefits of the breath through your whole body? So for this pose, I'm going to let you settle into a little bit more silence, a little less instruction, and just let you really absorb your practice here. As we move towards the end of our practice. Just remembering now to use your breath as your anchor. Getting ready now to come out of this pose, and just carefully I'll guide you into Shavasana. So our final pose will be Shavasana in a neutral position. So we'll do it as energy efficiently as possible with little disturbance to you. So literally just push your feet away and keep the blanket roll around your feet there, the foot wrap around your feet. Okay, and then you can slide those two rolled blankets, and when you sit up to do that, and wedge them underneath your knees there. Okay, so your feet nicely wrapped up in one blanket. Leave those two rolled blankets underneath your knees there. I'm going to keep my blanket along across my belly there. Maybe even wedge it in either side of you. And then all you need to do now is push your bolster off the top of your mat. Push your two bricks off the top of your mat there. And get ready to come down into Shavasana. So gently bring yourself down, all the way down. And again, just maybe shimmying the hips a little bit. Find a position that feels good for your lower back. Check in with your shoulders, make sure that they feel nice and secure. If they're not up around your ears, maybe even a little external rotation of the upper arms there, palms facing up towards the ceiling. Or it might feel nice to pop your hands, again with the palms facing up towards the ceiling, but have them just underneath your blanket there if you have the blanket across your belly. So even though you might have the blankets under your knees and the blankets over your feet and over your belly, just also feel for the lovely simplicity of Shavasana. It's a very basic way to restore the body is just to come down to the ground. As soon as you come down into this position, the heart already starts to react to it and calm down. That's how we come to rest when we sleep. So again, let's just settle into our final pose with a little bit more silence. And using your breath to keep you here. Keep the mind steady, stay on focus. Stay with your practice till the end. Getting ready to move again now, bringing a little bit of movement to the fingertips and the toes. Maybe even bending the knees up. Bring the feet mat distance apart and knock the knees in together again. So coming back to the very first pose we did at the start of our practice, constructive rest. Feet mat distance apart, knees bent, knees knocked in together, palms facing up. And then in your own time, getting ready to roll over again to your right hand side. Press your left hand into the ground and gently lift yourself up. And coming up really slowly now, vertebrae by vertebrae. In your own time, finding your way into a comfortable seated position, hands in preposition with your heart. Comes to your third eye, to your lips, to your heart center. Namaste. And thank you for practicing with me. So if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer. If you contact me at ruth@yogaroo.ie. I have lots of articles about restorative yoga on my website, which I will link to in the notes of the video recording. And thank you for practicing with me, and see you again soon.